Welcome to episode 72 of OTD, your daily dose of soccer history by 17 Law Sky. It's January 11, 2007, and football is about to watch a superstar walk away from Europe in his prime, in full celebrity bloom, to sign for LA Galaxy. Today that sounds normal. Football is global, brands travel, players do projects. But on this day in 2007, this announcement lands like a glitch in the system, because David Beckham isn't just a footballer. He's a cultural product, a Champions League winner, England captain, the right foot that bends physics, and by the mid-2000s, arguably the most famous athlete on the planet, helped along, of course, by marrying Victoria Posh Spice Adams and turning their lives into a permanent front page. So when LA Galaxy unveil him, the football world reacts with a kind of reflexive laughter. This is America. This is retirement. This is Disneyland. This is a publicity stunt. Except it isn't. This is the moment a player designs his own second career, and without quite saying it out loud, designs the future shape of Major League Soccer. So today we'll do three things. We'll remind ourselves just how big Becks was in the 2000s, footballer, celebrity, and symbol. We'll go inside the shock of January 11, 2007, including how Real Madrid reacts and how Beckham's final months in Spain became an unlikely redemption arc. And then we'll follow the long game, MLS, the business mechanics, and how this one contract line eventually becomes Inter Miami and the modern era of American football spectacle. But first, context. Because to understand the ridicule, you have to understand the scale. Beckham is a paradox. He's an ordinary footballer in the sense that he's not a natural dribbler like Ronaldo or a genius passer like Zidane. But he's extraordinary in the way he turns a single skill, crossing, dead balls, delivery, into an entire identity. At Manchester United, he becomes the face of a winning machine, the class of '92 era, the treble, the Premier League becoming the Premier League. He also becomes the cautionary tale, the 1998 World Cup red card, the national villain phase, the abuse, the backlash. And then he becomes the survivor, captaincy, leadership, the free kick against Greece in 2001 that drags England to the World Cup, one of those moments where a country's emotion seems to funnel into a single strike. When he moves to Real Madrid in 2003, he becomes part of the Galacticos theater, not just football, but fashion, sponsorship, global broadcast, celebrity, a squad designed as much for image rights as for trophies. And that's why January 2007 matters, because the Galaxy announcement isn't a player leaving Europe, it's a global brand, changing continent. Now, on this day, January 11, 2007, LA Galaxy announced that David Beckham will join them that summer. The numbers are immediately debated, because the deal isn't only salary, it's commercial gravity, shirt sales, sponsorships, tours, and Beckham's ability to drag cameras into stadiums that, in that era, still feel like a niche product. But the football reaction is visceral. He's 31. He can still play. He's in a Real Madrid shirt. So why is he doing this? And inside Real Madrid, the response is not thank you. Real, at that moment, are in one of their most psychologically unstable phases. Too famous to be humble, too chaotic to be ruthless, and constantly oscillating between glamour and dysfunction. Fabio Capello is the coach, a man who loves order, discipline, and loyalty. Beckham's announcement reads to Capello like leaving early. So Beckham is punished, frozen out, removed from squads, treated as if he has already departed. The message is clear. You sign for someone else, you don't get to matter here. And that's why this story turns, because Beckham's final months at Real becomes the opposite of what everyone expects. Instead of drifting, he digs in. He trains, he waits, he refuses to be a ghost. And as Real's season unravels into pressure, the kind of pressure that makes a club start eating itself, Capello eventually needs him. Beckham returns to the squad, and then to the team. And at the end of the 2006-07 season, becomes one of Real Madrid's strangest title runs. Not a masterpiece, but a grind. Not a symphony, but a series of recoveries. Real win La Liga. Beckham gets a league title in Spain, the one major domestic prize that for years seemed permanently out of reach for that Galacticos era. There's a symbolism to it. The man who was mocked for leaving ends up leaving with a trophy. And then he goes. Now picture the scene shift, from Madrid to Los Angeles, from the Bernabeu to a league that in 2007 is still negotiating its own identity. Part sports league, part entertainment product, part development pipeline, part soccer is finally going to make it in America. Beckham's arrival is treated as both salvation and spectacle. The unveiling is huge. The camera is following him. Every appearance becomes content. Every free kick becomes a headline. And in the short term, the football is messy, because it has to be. He is entering mid-season in a new country with a travel schedule and climate shift that Europeans underestimate, into a team that suddenly carries a global marketing load. But over time, Beckham does what he has always done. He makes his skill portable. Crosses still travel, free kicks still bend, and the league, slowly, adjusts to the idea that stars can come not only at the end, but with intent. He wins in MLS 2, titles, legitimacy, and closure. And then, just as importantly, he exits cleanly, not as a joke, but as a builder who proved the concept could work. And now comes the part that turns this from celebrity transfer into football history. Because Beckham's Galaxy deal is not just a contract, it's a blueprint. In 2007, many people treat it as a pay cut, leaving Europe's top wage structure for a league that cannot possibly compete. But the whole point is that Beckham is not only paid as a player, he's paid as an ecosystem. The deal is built to generate new revenue and to let Beckham participate in that upside. And buried inside the long game is the hinge, the pathway to ownership. Not symbolic ownership, real ownership, a seat at the table, which takes us, eventually, to Miami. Beckham the player becomes Beckham the executive. Beckham the brand becomes Beckham the platform. Inter Miami is not an accident. It's a delayed payout of the Galaxy decision. And if you want to understand how completely that has remade the American football landscape, you look at what happened next. Messi, Busquets, Suarez, a club that becomes a global traveling circus and genuine competitive power. And then the modern punchline, the trophy that makes the whole arc feel inevitable. In December 2025, Inter Miami win the MLS Cup, the club's first, with Lionel Messi as the story's gravitational center. So the January 2007 signing that was mocked as a vanity move becomes, by the mid-2020s, one of the most consequential football business decisions of the 21st century. And where does this leave the wider game? It leaves us with a question about the calendar and about football's modern power centers. In the 20th century, the prestige of football was overwhelmingly national team prestige, World Cups, continental tournaments, qualifiers, the idea that history is made in national colors. In the 21st century, the money has pulled gravity towards clubs, Champions League formats, global tours, club world championships, and billionaire-scale ownership projects. That's why Beckham matters, because his move is one of the cleanest bridges between these worlds. A footballer who's big enough to change a league's commercial architecture and then use that architecture to attract the biggest player of the era. And it's not a coincidence that this arc sits alongside FIFA's modern push to expand club competitions, including the expanded Club World Cup, staged in the US in 2025, with Inter Miami part of the story because of what they had become. This is where football is now, less transfer and more strategy. So what should we take away from January 11, 2007? Well, you know it, 3 points. First, Beckham wasn't just famous, he was structurally famous, the kind of fame that changes how clubs and leagues think about value. Second, the ridicule missed the point. This wasn't retirement, it was repositioning, a move designed to turn a player into a stakeholder. And third, football history isn't only made by goals and trophies. Sometimes it's made by contracts, by clauses and leverage, by someone realizing that the next era of football power is built off the pitch. On this day in 2007, David Beckham didn't just sign for LA Galaxy, he signed the first page of Inter Miami. That's all for episode 72 of OTD, of Beckham to LA Galaxy, the transfer that became a franchise. If you remember the ridicule, the headlines, or the first time you saw Beckham in a Galaxy shirt, email me at OTD@17lawsky.com. Tips and corrections are always welcome. And please rate us 5 stars, subscribe and tell a friend. Daily podcast cannot check the algorithm on their own. Tomorrow, in episode 73, we go back to January 12, 1889, and Sunderland AFC versus Sunderland Albion, a derby from the birth years of league football, and a rival that vanished while the other became an institution. See you then.